tell, do you see the road? I'm out to my soul into the size whenever the smoke clear out of my face and my picture perfect. Do it. All of that green together, the truth, yeah. Tell you the
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the first part of What If BEN10 Meets Powerpuff Girls. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of man of cartoons on fanfictionnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. It was night time in the city of Townsville. The streets were partially quiet and no sign of trouble that could be seen or detected. It was one of those normal nights that the city didn't have a monster attacking or a villain trying to take over the world. However, this night was different than any other, though no one would notice. Above the skies, a red humanoid manta alien flew. The people below failed to notice, and that was what the alien wanted. To others, the alien was another monster, but this one was special. Though it looked like an alien, it had a green and black hourglass on its chest. The alien continuously flew through the air, saying his thoughts, well, here we go again. No place to stay, meaning no place to sleep. Good thing no one can see me, cause the last thing I need right now is battle another hero. The alien came to an isolated alley and touched down. In a flash of light, standing in his place was a brown-haired teen, now to save the world. At that same time, an alarm went off in a lab located in a town far from Townsville. A boy in his teens, wearing a lab coat and wearing glasses, snapped his fingers and the alarms went off. "Computer, what's the problem at hand?" the teen asked. A voice from the lab, sounding female and computer-like, answered, "A strange energy anomaly has been detected within Townsville. Just an hour ago, a bigger detection of dimensional entry was detected." The teen remained silent, his arm holding his chin as he thought. He walked to a large screen and pressed a button, which then displayed a map with two dots. The first dot was smaller while the other was bigger, but distant away from the first. The teen fixed his glasses in and said, "Your detection is indeed correct, computer, but the question is who they are. I must investigate." Morning came up, filling the town with light and life. The normal routine for the town began as people did their normal activities without any trouble. From the skies, 3 streaks of light in red, blue and green flew above. The people below waved at them, cheering and smiling. The source of the light was actually 3 middle school girls, at the age of 13. The first girl wore mostly red. She had pink eyes and long red hair that reached her waist. She wore a red shirt which showed her midriff, a red skirt with black stripes and long white socks with black shoes. Next was her sister in blue. Unlike the first girl, she has blue sky's eyes and blonde pigtail hair. She wears a blue dress, resembling her former clothing when she was little. She also wore a white scarf around her neck and a blue Paris beanie. Like her sister, she wore a white socks and black shoes. Lastly was their sister with green eyes. Unlike her other sisters, her clothing had a mix of dark. She wore black jeans with small green stripes, along with a black shirt that showed her midriff. Though she wore too much black, she still kept her color, for example her green eyes, green gloves and a green lightning bolt at the middle of her black shirt. Over the years, the girls have achieved so much since their creation. Their battles over evil has become known to the extent that aliens were aware and made sure to never visit the town. However, that couldn't be said for the normal villains and monsters that attacked every chance they got. The Powerpuff Girls made sure the villains never succeed and still kept themselves pure in heart as they did well. While they flew through the air, the girl in green spoke, "Men, am I glad the weekends are back, every day it's school this and school that." "Relax, Buttercup," replied the red-haired, "school is actually good for your knowledge. You can't always think brawl is more than smarts every time. The world is filled with its fascination and—" "You know what I just heard?" Buttercup interjected, "I heard blah, 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 something about knowledge and brawl beats smarts. Face it, Blossom, we're the Powerpuff Girls and we can beat anything that comes our way. Blossom's only response was a small growl. It didn't seem to threaten Buttercup, but the blonde of the girls intervened. Blossom is right, Buttercup. I love the arts classes. Bleck. Buttercup made a puke face. You two make me want to puke. I just hope something big comes so I can beat it up. One of these days, Buttercup, something powerful might come along and you won't be smirking. Blossom said. However, Blossom's words only made her grin. Oh, that'll be fun. Meanwhile, across Townsville. A black fast car drove through the street in a hurry as police cars chased them. Within the car, armed men wearing masks were trying to elude the police cars. So far the police were still on their tail, and if nothing was done they would be caught. However, these armed robbers weren't going to go down easily. Time was running out, and if they didn't hurry the Powerpuff Girls might get them. From the back, a lone robber brought half his body out, holding a bazooka. Eat this, you stupid Coopers. No sooner, he pulled the trigger and fired a big missile. It flew straight to a police vehicle right behind them and hit the tire, causing the vehicle to tumble. Luckily, the officer inside wasn't too bad, but some police cars stopped for the injured cop while 3 others gave chase. The lone vehicle put his body back him and turned to the leader, who sat at the front passenger seat. The cops are still after us, what we do now? There's no way I'm going back to the slammers. Shut up. The leader scolded. No one is going to jail and those cops won't know what hit them. The leader took a rifle laser gun and brought half his body out. He gripped the gun, narrowing his eyes as he chose a good target. Once he got a target, he shot a nearby lamp post that they passed. The lamp post was hit and fell, hitting one of the police cars, thereby obstructing the other behind. The only vehicle unaffected continued to give chase. Oh no, you won't. The leader gritted his teeth. He chose another target and fired. This time it hit the ground, creating a large hole. The lone police car was driving too fast that it hit the hole, causing to lose control and fall underside down. The leader smiled at this and sat back in. Now that's how you deal with them. Unfortunately, up ahead of them a woman was walking with her baby. The robbers noticed when they were getting closer, but none of them made a move to stop. If anything, they increased their speed. The woman heard the sound of the car coming in gasps. There was no way she could escape. Suddenly, a green insect creature, resembling a humanoid grasshopper, landed in front of her and picked her up with her holding her baby. The woman didn't have much to react before the creature jumped away just before the car could hit. The creature landed on the sideway and dropped her and her baby. Thank you. The woman smiled at him, though taken back a bit. Who are you? The creature, very well known as an alien, smirked. Call me Crashhopper. With that said, Crashhopper jumped off, while heading to the bad guys. While they rejoice about their escape, it soon ended as the car shook when something landed on the roof. What was that? One of them asked. I don't know, kill it. The leader commanded, already holding his laser rifle. The robbers, minus the driver, brought out their weapons and opened fire at the roof. The thing on the roof leapt off before getting killed and landed in front of them, standing in readiness. The thing was Crashhopper. The driver nearly freaked when his eyes fell on the alien in front of them. What is that thing? I don't know, just squashed it. The leader yelled angrily. As ordered, the driver increased his speed to full. Crashhopper only grinned, smirked and got into a stance to jump at them. So it squashed the alien bug day, huh? Well, let me show you that this bug is an exception. The car moved full speed ahead, but Crashhopper was first. He shot himself straight at them, his horn straight, and hit the front of the car, making it come to a halt. The car deployed its airbag, saving the ones in front from hitting the glass. However, that couldn't be said about the ones at the back, unconscious. The leader snarled through his teeth, cursing about his failed operation. He immediately got out of the car and so did the driver. He scowled on the first thing he saw, which was Crash Hopper, "You lousy bug, I'll make sure you're squashed for this." Yeah, just get to the part you start shooting." Crash Hopper taunted at him. The leader didn't respond, but instead angrily shot a laser from his rifle. Before it could get him, Crash Hopper jumped high up to avoid the blast. He then did a front flip before coming down and stomped down on the leader. Done with the leader, he smirked and turned to the driver, who held a small gun. "You want to do this the easy way or the hard way?" "And I hope for the latter." The driver held the gun, shaking it rapidly with fire as he directed it at the alien. He seems hesitate as he tried to pull the trigger while trying to overcome his fear. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore and hit the gun to his head and fell unconscious on the ground. "Well, that fixed that," Crash Hopper said proudly. He soon got caught off with cheering from bystanders. The young hero smiled at them and waved, "Thank you, it was all in a day's work." While he waved, he noticed some strange colors heading his way, strange rainbow colors on a sunny day. Rather than narrowing his eyes to get a closer look, he shrugged and jumped off the other way. If Crash Hopper had stayed, he would have met the Powerpuff Girls. Though he didn't see them from the distance, the girls were able to see him from the sky. Once they got there, they landed on the ground as the crowd continued cheering for the hero that just left. "What happened here?" Blossom asked, looking around the area. The people were cheering, but it wasn't for them and a car was broken down. Next to that, 2 robbers lay on the ground unconscious. "I don't know, but I'm sure it's that bug thing is the reason," Buttercup replied, glaring at the distance. She enhanced her sight, making it able for her to see the distance. She found a humanoid grasshopper leaping from building to building and cocked a small grin. "I'm going after it." "Buttercup, wait!" Blossom shouted, but it was in vain. Buttercup ignored her sister, too determined to get the humanoid grasshopper. Crash Hopper leaped from building to building, enjoying the jumping sensation. He didn't know why he liked it, but he could guess that it was his current alien's trait. If it weren't for the sensation, Ben would have hidden somewhere and changed back. But at the moment Ben didn't care the least. The Omnitrix was still at full power and he didn't seem bothered to change. Everything went smoothly until he heard a faint female cry getting louder. Once he heard it, he came to a sudden halt, on top of a skyscraper and looked back. The next thing he knew, someone threw herself on him and pinned him to the ground. Finding himself in a stuck situation, Crash Hopper struggled. "Hey, what's the big idea?" He went numb for a second when he glanced at who held him. "Wow, you're a girl." "Of course I am, who did you think it was?" The girl said to him, "Care to explain why you ran off?" "Sorry, but I don't answer like that, especially from a tomboy girly girl," Crash Hopper retorted and tried to struggle out of the girl's hold. The girl snickered, "Try as much as you can, there's no way you can escape." "Okay." Crash Hopper sighed, closing his eyes. To Buttercup, he was quiet, but actually he was forming a quick plan. "Hey, what's that over there?" Crash Hopper snapped his eyes open, looking over her. Buttercup fell for it, releasing her hold on the alien. Crash Hopper took the chance of distraction and sent his feet at her, sending her flying to the air. However, Buttercup came to a halt in the air and glared at him. "Hey, you tricked me." "Duh." Crash Hopper snickered, like it was the most obvious thing. "Honestly speaking, I didn't expect that to work on a tomboy girly girl." "What did you just call me?" Watching the fuming girl, Crash Hopper took a step back in fright. Oh. Suddenly, an impact blow hit Crash Hopper that he didn't see it coming. All he knew, the blow hit his stomach and shot him right off the skyscraper and making a crater in the street. "Ow, that hurts." Crash Hopper groaned. He shook off the pain from the impact, already feeling it go away. He then looked up and saw Buttercup glaring at him. "Can't we talk about this?" All traces of anger from Butter were replaced with a grin. "Nah, then where's the fun? I've been looking for something to beat up all day. So I take it as a no." Buttercup's next response was shooting her laser beams at him. Crash Hopper reacted quickly and rolled out of the way, but still got caught by the explosive impact. It forced him to tumble and roll until he came to a stop. Just as he did, Crash Hopper stood up. "Okay, you want a fight, then I'll give you a fight. Then don't disappoint me," Buttercup said, excitedly with the same grin. She charged up her laser beams and fired at him. To avoid the blast, Crash Hopper jumped backwards, avoiding its collision and impact. He then took a strong stance and jumped straight at Buttercup with his horn in front. Buttercup watched him coming, but made no move to avoid it. Instead, when it came, she held the horn with one hand and threw a hard punch that knocked him down. "Come on, I don't have all day." Buttercup watched him get up. Crash Hopper responded with a groan and stood firmly. Clearly, his attack didn't work and didn't seem to work for this alien form. So instead, the bearer of the Omnitrix and took off. Okay, new plan. Though a bit taken back at his retreat, Buttercup followed him from behind, becoming less serious at the second. What should have been interesting was getting boring. However, she made no move to attack, but instead gave chase. Crash Hopper kept going until he came to a halt at a manhole and ripped off the cover. Buttercup halted, still hovering in the air. "What are you doing?" Crash Hopper didn't answer, but jumped inside the sewers. Taking it that he was running away, Buttercup flew closer to the manhole. "If that's your way of running, it's a stinky one." Through the darkness, Buttercup saw a flash of green light. She didn't know why, but then the ground began to shake. Suddenly, vines sprouted out of the street and wrapped around her. It literally caught her by surprise and tied her as she came face to face with a plant alien with one eye, who said anything about running. The alien formed a smirk. Wildvine held her tightly, cutting off any oxygen. Unknown to him, Buttercup didn't need oxygen to stay conscious, though she felt the pain all over her body. She struggled for a while before throwing both her hands out, tearing through the vines. Surprise! Buttercup charged her laser beams and fired. Wildvine hissed from the pain, but then Buttercup flew straight at him and threw a hard blow. Since he didn't expect it and couldn't avoid it, Wildvine was sent a few meters. While he lay on the ground, Buttercup flew slowly to him. Wildvine didn't seem to move and she almost felt disappointed that she beat him easily. She knew better not to underestimate anyone and knew something was wrong. Her confirmation was right as Wildvine swiftly took out some black seeds and threw it at her that hit her, knocking her a few feet into the air. The Powerpuff Girl regained herself, preventing from touching the ground. She still was taken in by the seed's effects, affecting her mind in a dizzy way. Before she knew it, Wildvine shot his vine-like fingers at her, trapping her in a cocoon. This time he swung her around him before throwing her to the ground. Wildvine retracted his fingers to their normality. Had enough. "I got more where they come from." Buttercup slowly got back to her feet with her head down. She remained silent for a while before raising her eyes, revealing glowing red eyes. "Ah oh," Wildvine said, knowing the next outcome. From where she stood, Buttercup began to fire laser beams at Wildvine. Each blast cut through him, but they healed swiftly. Wildvine glances at the supposed wounds and smiled stupidly at her. His smile only made the Powerpuff to growl, though in a low tone. She didn't fire any laser beams after that, since they weren't working. Instead, Buttercup began to rub her hands together. It would seem normal until they began to spark electricity. Wildvine's eyes flew wide, already knowing her next move. "Let's end this," she said, clutching both her fists as they charged electricity. She pushed both her arms forward, sending the electric voltages at Wildvine. Due to his poor agility, Wildvine couldn't move much to avoid it and got hit, exploding into small pieces. Buttercup dropped both her fists down and smiled. "This time stay down if you know what's good for you." She then turned away and pulled out her phone. "I better call the girls and tell them about this thing." However, right behind her, the scattered pieces of Wildvine began to form into. The process was quiet that she was unaware until it was too late. "You were saying?" Wildvine smirked, finally back together. Just as he finished, he swat his arm at her, sending her crashing into a car. Everything seems quiet for the next few seconds until Buttercup walked out without a scratch. Okay, I should have seen that coming. Yeah, that's what they all say. Buttercup cracked her knuckles, showing the smirk on her face. Let's see if I can't put you to your place. Buttercup made a straight line at Wildvine and threw a punch at him. However, this time, Wildvine was prepared and went into the ground. He came out a few meters from her right, I'll admit, but let's see you handle Kid Impervious. Immediately, Wildvine slammed the Omnitrix symbol on his chest and became engulfed in a flash of green light. All over his body, his strength enhanced and his body shaped. He grew 9 feet tall and began to grow hair all over his body. No part of his body was left out during the transformation before it was complete. When the light died, in Wildvine's place was a 9-foot humanoid tiger with orange and white fur and green eyes. Kid Impervious. The alien tiger shouted. However, he became wide-eyed and snarled at the symbol on his chest. Let me tell you something, Omnitrix. Wrath has gotten sick of you not working, it's not even funny anymore. Buttercup raised an eyebrow. Okay, so are you going to fight or not? Wrath glared at her. Let me tell you something, tomboy girl, Wrath has enough of this fight. In fact, Wrath is gonna show you want Wrath. He was cut off as Buttercup shot him with a laser beam that hit his shoulder. It didn't do much, but he yelped, ow. Hey, why did you do that for? You can't interrupt Wrath when Wrath is doing his thing. Really, cause all I heard is how dumb you are. Buttercup snickered at him. Okay, that's it. Wrath roared. Like the raging tiger he was, he rushed at her in such a speed that he got Buttercup by a hard punch. The tough Powerpuff tumbled in the air, backwards, due to the blow. She came a halt soon enough and found Wrath heading straight for her. Quickly, she went sideways, avoiding the upcoming blow and kicked him at the head, sending him to the ground. Wrath crashed into the ground, which created a crater. He groaned from the impact and almost got up, but Buttercup came stomping down and marched down on his chest. The force from the girl sent a powerful blow through Wrath and into the ground, creating a larger crater and a dust cloud. Through the dust cloud, Buttercup was sent flying out and hit a lamppost. The dust cloud settled, revealing Wrath as he panted heavily. You're going down. No, you are. She swiftly got back to her feet and grabbed the lamppost. When Wrath got closer, she put up a game face and swung it at him. However, Wrath grabbed it with his bare hands. That's your first mistake. When you try to hit Wrath, you only make Wrath mad. Along with that outburst, he chops the lamppost into two and sent his hauled at Buttercup. However, Buttercup charged her laser beams and shot it, destroying it into pieces. She still held her half and swung it at Wrath's face. The only effect it had on Wrath was his head slightly moved to the right. Buttercup was surprised, even frozen as she stared at him. That blow should have sent him flying, but instead he hardly moved. Wrath moved his head back at her with a sharp glare. Well, you mess with Wrath. You get the fists. While Buttercup held the pole, Wrath grabbed the other side and began to swing it around himself. Buttercup lost her footing, holding the pole as Wrath continued to turn it around him. The increased force became so much that Buttercup couldn't hold on anymore and was sent flying into a building. For a while everything seems normal, but Wrath knew better. Already his enhanced hearing could pick up something and he got into a fighting stance. Suddenly, Buttercup burst out of the building, followed by the usual green streak. Guess what, dude? She cocked a grin. You just made me mad. Without saying another word, she clutched her fists and stomped down on the ground, sending rocks flying towards Wrath's way. The massive wave of rocks was too much for Wrath to avoid. He was hit by most of them and sent flying into a store, which was deserted. Since the fight started, all the civilians had run off, knowing better to stay away. It was even amazing that the rest of the Powerpuff Girls hadn't arrived. Wrath emerged from the store with scratches. The attack did some damage to him, but he channeled all that pain into his anger. He was about ready to charge at Buttercup and attack her when something dropped to the ground. The anger he wanted to unleash quickly left as he looked down at a small purple cube, being the thing that dropped from the sky. Buttercup also notices this and flew down to ground to look at it. What is that thing? Something about the cube made Wrath very suspicious. He narrowed his sight entirely at it and became wide-eyed. Trouble. Suddenly, the cube exploded and formed on the ground, into a purple portal that resembled a wormhole. Constant electricity sparked from it, but didn't hit the heroes. However, since they stood close to it they were stuck in the gravitational pull. Buttercup tried to fight it back by moving back. With every step she took, it seems the portal kept sucking her in stronger. To make it worse, she lost a step and fell on her back, rendering her vulnerable. If she wasn't in the situation, she would have noticed a flash of green light. The portal continued to suck her that she got stuck in its swirling current. She screamed as the only thing to do, but then felt a rope wrap around her wrist. Confused, Buttercup looked up and found a humanoid pterodactyl wearing a jetpack being the source. Hold on. The strange alien groaned, pulling the other side of the rope. For a second, it seems that it was working, but the gravitational pull from the portal eventually took over. The green rope snapped, releasing Buttercup into the depths of the portal. Watching while he could, Astrodactyl squawks, not good. Soon enough, like Buttercup, the gravitational pull overpowered Astrodactyl and sucked him in. The portal closed that instant, like nothing ever happened. Buttercup felt the pull too much to fight back. At the same time it seems to last forever but also a few minutes. It was weird, even for her since she has encountered all kinds of weird. When it felt too much, she found herself falling to the concrete ground. Ah! Buttercup held her peach, since it suffered most of the impact. For a moment she considered looking around, but something fell on her with a squawk sound. The thing revealed to be Astrodactyl, sitting on top her as he tried to reconcile what just happened. Ah, my aching back. It's a good thing I fell on something soft. That would be me. Astrodactyl squawked and jumped, surprised by the sudden voice. He looked down and got off Buttercup, smiling sheepishly. Sorry about that. The Powerpuff only shot him a glare and got off. Oh, you'll be sorry, right after I kick your ass. Seriously, we just fell out of a portal and you want to fight again? Astrodactyl got his answer as she flew fast at him. It was only his reflex that caught up to him quick and he moved to the right, avoiding her. Okay, so I'll take that as a yes. Buttercup came back at him, this time faster. She first threw a punch at him, but he ducked out of the way. The Powerpuff growled softly and threw a fast kick at his stomach, sending him flying a few meters away. Astrodactyl felt the pain, but suppressed a groan from it and got up. Just as he did, Buttercup flew straight at him. He reacted quickly and leapt back, just in time to avoid a swift blow from the girl. Knowing he had little chance of defeating her on ground, Astrodactyl opened his wings and took off with Buttercup following. The angered Powerpuff tried to catch up, but the alien flew faster, even leaving a long distance. He felt proud of it as he looked back and found her distance away. Ha! You can't catch me. Astrodactyl laughed. But if he had paid more attention, he would have noticed a green blur fly past him. It was only when he looked forward that he realized Buttercup was standing in front of him to a grin. Amen. Astrodactyl didn't have the chance to stop before Buttercup delivered a right hook at his face, sending him crashing to the ground hard and creating a small dent. The blow hurt more than he estimated, but he managed to shake it off and got back to his feet. Once he did, he found Buttercup coming down. You throw a hard punch, I'll give you that. Astrodactyl held his beak, where the blow was given the most. Now let's see if you can try me full on. He clutched his fists and summoned his energy whips, sending them straight at Buttercup. The teen Powerpuff wasn't surprised and easily avoided them with speed. She took to his side and flew straight at him. This would have caught the alien by surprise, but Astrodactyl was ready as he shot up into the air, shooting a propulsion blast that hit Buttercup to the extent that it hit her HRD on the ground, creating a big dent. Astrodactyl came around and touched down on the ground. Had enough? No. Buttercup stood, though hissed from the pain, "You're good, I'll give you that. But I'm better." Without a warning, Buttercup flew straight at him with the usual streak of green following. Astrodactyl remained still, but allowed his hand to tap the Omnitrix symbol. Buttercup was blinded by a flash of light, but continued with a fast punch at the alien. However, something hard and metal grabbed it. She looked in front of her and found a yellow armored humanoid with a helmet and 2 ears that gave him an appearance of an armadillo. Surprise! While the alien held her fist, the other change began to pump fast. He threw his fist at her, sending her flying out of sight. Buttercup found herself hitting the ground and brushing through. It was hard to believe that an alien even though it was bigger, that knocked her away like that. When she came to a halt, she got up to her feet and was ready to fly. Before she could, a dagger shot right before her, missing her foot. What the heck? Buttercup stepped back, glancing at the dagger. Who shot that? That would be me, a voice answered. Buttercup turned back, where the source of the voice came from. She saw a man, someone highly advanced in age. He wore a black helmet visor which revealed his face. He also wore a black jacket and a body suit with purple lines. The Powerpuff shot a glare at him. Who do you think you are? Do you really want to get your ass hooped? The man stared at her and chuckled, angering the girl. He didn't seem to think of Buttercup as a threat, since he has. He looked at her from feet to head and smirked. They call me Ian. You seem too confident of yourself. We just met and you think you can, as you say, kick my butt. You better watch it, old man, or I'll WHP that smirk off your face. Buttercup narrowed her eyes in a threatening way. Foolish child, do you honestly think you can beat me, a time traveler? You may have done that in the present, but in this devastated future, you're all alone. Buttercup couldn't help but gasp. She listened to his words and for once in a while wasn't angry. What he said about being in the future surprised her and brought her to look around her surroundings. All around her the buildings were ancient ruins and all the vehicles were old and rusted. The roads had cracks all around and vines began to take place. What happened? She said in a whisper, but we never left, we stayed. Ian interjected, much to his joy, your sisters did, but not you. At that instant, Buttercup's eyes snapped wider in pure rage. They shifted to a glare so harsh that if she wanted would shoot beams. She shifted that glare directly at Ian and shot an accusing finger at him. You did this. I'm going to make you pay. Ian only blinked at her before laughing loudly. His action only made Buttercup angry, even to the extent that tears began to come out of her eyes. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore and shot straight at him in rage. She set to throw a left hook and threw it at him as fast as a blur. She would have gotten him, but he disappeared. Miss me, Ian said, standing a few meters from her right. Buttercup her eyes at his direction and ran straight at him with enhanced speed. Ian stood his ground, even snickering, and waited for the Powerpuff to send the first blow. As predicted, she threw both her arms at him to catch him, but he leapt back. Tell me, Buttercup. How does it feel to know that everyone you love is dead? At the last part, he let out a loud laugh. Shut up. Buttercup shot back at him. Well, I guess I should. After all, before Buttercup knew it, Ian reappeared right behind her. I got you where I want you. He placed his hand on her should and sent a high voltage of electricity that even Buttercup couldn't stand. The girl screamed from the pain and slumped to the ground, almost unconscious. Though weakened, Buttercup moved her eyes her front, where she was sure Ian stood before he reappeared at her back. Once she did, her eyes snapped open as he still stood there. But how? She tried to say out loud, but it came as a whisper. The Ian that shocked her crouched down with a grin. Holograms have great uses. Buttercup looked back at the former and found him fade away. It explained why he disappeared when she threw the first punch and why it never hit her. She was being played and now she failed. Unconsciousness began to take over and Buttercup accepted it. Ian chuckled deeply to himself and took Buttercup off the ground. He threw her on his shoulder and turned back, just as a purple portal appeared. He stepped a foot forward, but grinned as his ears picked up someone running very fast, just in time. Still holding Buttercup, he turned back. "It's about time you showed up, Tennyson. I was getting worried you weren't going to show up." "Drop her, Ian," XLR8 said, demandingly. "I won't, but how about you come get her?" He stood a few steps back and entered the portal, vanishing out of Ben's sight. XLR8 didn't know why, but he had to save Buttercup and stop Ian. Before the portal closed, he ran through into it. At the other side, XLR8 ran through as a black and blue blur. The portal sparked before closing, leaving the teen hero to an unknown destination. That didn't worry the hero as he began looking around, searching for any sign of Ian and Buttercup. Unfortunately, there wasn't a sign of them. The only thing that he could see was a meadow. Amen. He slumped to the ground. What now? Suddenly, he could hear the sounds of electricity sparking and things being sliced. It didn't make much sense, so XLR8 got back to his feet and ran to the direction. He got there and was surprised at what he saw. A lone man fought against a squadron of beetle-like robots. Despite their large number, he fought them with great skill and agility. The man resembles someone from Japanese, even dressed like one. He wore a kimono and had his hair tied to a topknot. Altogether, he was like a samurai from Japan, but fight robots. XLR8 continued to watch, too impressed of the man's skill. Ben has met a lot of heroes like Danny Phantom, Timmy Turner, the Teen Titans, the Ninja Turtles and the Justice League, but what the man did was amazing. He didn't have any advanced gadgetry and only used his skill to fight the robots. He also had great agility that he used to avoid some of the robots' attacks. After some time, the man was done, with only robots' parts lying on the ground. The samurai held out his sword before putting his sword in his scabbard. "Wow!" XLR8 whispered. But it didn't go unnoticed by the samurai. The samurai's enhanced hearing picked up XLR8's whisper. He directed his eyes at his direction, brought out his sword. Then he charged at the alien, letting out a battle cry. "Wait, let me explain." XLR8 tried, but didn't get the chance. The samurai got close and swung his sword at the speedster. XLR8 reacted quickly and ran off to a safer distance, avoiding the attack. "What type of trickery is this Aku has sent?" the samurai said, between gasps and seriousness. "Who's Aku?" XLR8 reappeared right behind him. The samurai shot his eyes at him and swung his sword at him fast. The speedster would have been hit, but ran off again, avoiding the blade. He come a halt again, this time at his right. "Hey, what's the deal? I was only—" The samurai swung his sword at him, but he ran off and stood a few meters from him. "Seriously? Why does everyone want to kill me today? Is today, Kill Ben Tennyson Day?" The samurai seemed to hold still, but really he was waiting for the right time. He had his eyes closed and snapped them open. That instant, he jumped off the ground with a battle cry. XLR8 watched him, even when he began to descend. His view became closer and it then came to the speedster where the samurai will come down. Quickly, XLR8 ran away, just in time to avoid Jack and his sword coming down on him. Phew! That was too close. XLR8 sighed and came to a halt. The samurai stood up straight with silence. He had his sword down, with the blade touching it. XLR8 watched him curiously, wishing to just know his next move. The speedster got his answer, thought it was too late, as the samurai dug his blade to the ground and shot it straight at the XLR8's visor, momentarily blinding him. By the time he cleared it, he was kicked at the stomach and sent on the ground. He then looked up, allowing his visor to leave, revealing his face. He found the tip of a blade and found the samurai standing close to him. I come in peace. He smiled sheepishly, raising his hands up. The samurai didn't seem the one to joke. Who sent you, was it Aku? Gesundheit. What? The samurai raised an eyebrow. You sneezed, didn't you? No, I didn't. Now tell me if Aku sent you. Okay, so who's Aku? The samurai stared at the creature below him with disbelief and confusion. Upon all the creatures he has met, he certainly hasn't encountered one with a great sense of humor that made him confused. Just by its face, the samurai easily could tell from his attitude that Aku didn't send him. In fact, if the creature auditioned to kill him, Aku would easily kick him out in 8 seconds. Realizing he was wasting his time, the samurai drew back his sword from the alien and placed it in his scabbard. With that he turned away and began to walk away. XLR8 watched him leave and got up, too confused. Where are you going? That is none of your concern. The samurai replied back. However, XLR8 didn't drop it and soon ran off to his front, this time his visor covering his face. Okay, so before you go, did you see an ugly guy carrying a tomboy girl away? No, I don't believe. The samurai stopped, hearing sounds of buzzing from the sky. Quickly, he darted his attention from the creature in front of him and to the skies. The creature also followed and saw thousands of beetle robots heading their way. Men, there are a lot. XLR8 said. Yes, there are. We must go at once. The samurai said urgently. Right ahead of you. Before the samurai knew it, the alien got him on his back in a blur. Now hold on and keep all puke to yourself. With that said, he ran off as fast as a blur. The samurai held XLR8 tight as his wind blew against his face. He didn't dare look back as he didn't find it much to do so and just focus on holding on. XLR8 ran in a speed that he has never known could be possible. Indeed, the future had many wonders. XLR8 ran off in great hurry and a grin on his face. There was no way the robots will catch up to him unless they could reach the speed of sound. Though it wasn't necessary, XLR needed to get the samurai away to a safe location before he could set off to find Buttercup. Some people would leave someone behind and live for themselves, but Ben knew better. He and Buttercup didn't get a good start and the only way to fix it was to get her back. When he was sure he was far enough, he stopped at a nearby tree. The samurai came down, though dizzily but fine. He managed to regain himself in the next few seconds and faced the alien. Thank you. The samurai smiled. You truly aren't sent by Aku. Thanks, I guess. XLR8 said, unsure about the person the samurai kept mentioning. By the way, who are you? They call me Jack. XLR8 seems critic about the name, but kept it to himself. Obviously, it wasn't the man's real name, but perhaps a name a group gave him. Either way, XLR8 left it behind as he replied, nice. So are you sure you haven't seen the two I mentioned earlier? No, I haven't. But I do. A voice echoed in the air. Both heroes turned to their right and found time frozen. The wind blowing against the tree was completely frozen, the grass was the same and the nearby friendly animals stopped at different direction. Suddenly, 2 hands of a clock appeared in front of them before moving to 12 0-foot clock. Once it did, in its place was a friend Ben hadn't seen in a while. Clockwork? What are you doing? XLR8 asked the time MSTR. Hello, Benjamin. It's been a while since we last met. Clockwork said pleasantly with a smile. He then changed to his child form. However, I mustn't spend much time to avoid nefarious detection. The reason Paradox isn't here is because Ian has built a tower that keeps him out. As long as this is operational, Paradox can't be here, but I can because of my ghostly nature. To do this, you will need Jack's help to accomplish this. How do you know my name? Jack asked. Clockwork changed to his middle-age form. I'm the MSTR of time, I know all. Benjamin, you can trust Jack with your secret because both of you will need each other if you are to stop nefarious evil plan. Ben opened his mouth to ask, but the time MSTR beat him to it. This moment of time is the future, just 1,000 years from the ruins of Townsville you were in. Nefarious has influenced his way into the future and has allied himself with Aku. He plans to deliver a creature of great power to his side. This creature is imprisoned, but Nefarious has planned that it be brought to him by a time machine. Time machine. Jack's eyes flew wide. The time MSTR expected this, yes, a time machine. But it won't take you to your time, only to a few thousands of years. Whatever I must do, I will. The samurai said assuredly. Very well. Clockwork then turned to Ben. Be watchful, Ben. Nefarious has great plans to take over the universe. You must be ready for the ultimate search. Ultimate search, what is that? XLR8 asked again. You will know when the time comes. Clockwork stated. He pressed the button on the top of his staff, time out. With that said, he disappeared the same way he appeared. Time returned back to normal, but this time Jack and Ben were gone. Through the skies, Big Chill flew with Jack, holding him his hands. The moment Clockwork left, the two worked together and found some directions to their destination. They arrived at the city, but suddenly Big Chill could hear the watch beginning to time out. Quickly, he touched down to the ground, releasing Jack and changed back to normal in a flash of light. Jack stared at the kid in front of him in wonder and slight disbelief. So this is your true form? Yeah, just be cool about it. Ben stated before walking to the gate in front of them. The gate was gold in color, though every odd since it should be rusted at this point of time. Ben tried to open it, but it didn't, proving that it was locked. Ben shook the gate in an attempt to open it, but failed. Yep, it's locked. We need something like a key to get through, or at least something sharp enough. Or we could jump over it. Jack walked to him closer. What are you talking about? That is, HH. Jack lifted Ben off his feet and jumped high into the air. Ben watched as they were feet away from the ground and continued screaming. Dude, you can fly. No, jump good. Jack cocked a smirk. Soon enough they touched down on the ground, on the street of the city. Ben could easily tell this was Townsville thousands of years back. It was already proven by the broken down building structures, and weeds and vines appeared here and there. Ben got off from Jack and exclaimed, dude, that was totally awesome. After we're done, you so gotta teach me. Jack chuckled, very well, but first the task at hand must be done first. So why do you think Aku will be here? Common logic. Ben shrugged. How I got here was through a portal by a guy called Ian. He had a mean, tough and over-angered girl that I was fighting. I would have left her with him, but knowing Ian it must be bad, so I followed. However, I ended up seeing you fighting those robots. Well, after the whole trying to kill me thing and meeting Clockwork, I got this idea that maybe Ian sent me away while he just stayed at the same place in this timeline. That sounds more like a theory. What, I'm 13. Cut me some slack, dude. Jack opened to his mouth to reply, but sounds of motorized vehicles intervened. It came from a distance, far from them, but was now getting closer. The two heroes could see a large dust cloud, indicating that the vehicles were in large numbers and were coming. To them, it was trouble and quickly became on the defensive. The vehicles arrived, displaying themselves as part robot and motorbikes. The vehicles surrounded them and began circling around them and letting out sounds of excitement. Jack quickly held the handle of his sword, but maintained his time. Ben followed the samurai's lead as he already had his hand over the Omnitrix. The motor soon stopped and froze. They began to shift into humanoid robots, something that Jack has encountered before. Silence once took over for the time being. Jack and Ben stood in defense, waiting for the robot's first move. The robot seemed to be doing the same, but then cleared a small path. Through that path, a blue robot with a mustache and red eyes walked through. Well, isn't it the samurai that put me out of business? It's been a while. I know you. You're those machines that terrorized the people and in the process I lost a scandal. Yes, it is me. Though it spoke proudly, that ended as a grim look took over. After that fight, I was the only one left. No one helped me and I was left for broken. Luckily, Aku gave me a chance to pay you back for your kindness and that's what I intend to do. Right boys? His army of robots let out a cry, agreeing with their leader. Jack clutched his sword tightly, even to the extent that he drew half of it out. However, Ben held his hand, stopping him. Jack snapped his head to the teen. What are you doing? We must fight. I know, but leave this to me. Ben nodded. A grin then spread on his face. I think I try out this alien in a real fight. Jack didn't seem sure, but complied. The robots continued to cheer, unaware that Ben now stood before Jack. Hey, Buckethead, over here. Ben yelled at the high robot. This got the robots and their boss attention. Sorry, but Jack isn't going to fight you. I will. Once Ben stated those words, the robots burst into laughter. To them Ben was a small kid and was completely harmless to even only one of them. For all they knew, the only thing the kid could do was probably kick and yelp from the pain of metal. Funny, kid. The leader snickered, now get out of my way or get squashed. Ben still maintained his stand despite the insult. He already had his hand over the Omnitrix, how about neither of them? With the proud smirk, he slammed the watch down and became engulfed in a moment flash of light. Once the transformation finished, standing in his place was a strange creature Jack had never seen before. The alien had a magnetically floating metal head, levitating in an arch between his shoulders. Along with that the alien had crab-like claws for hands and his body is mainly black with yellow feet, hands, shoulder and chest. The alien raised both his hands far from his sides and shouted, Lodestar. The robots were frozen in shock, most of them had their eyes wide open. Truly, they have never encountered something like this, but that didn't mean they were scared. The boss was the first to snap out it, okay, that's good but you won't be able to stop us with that little thing. Wanna bet? Lodestar pushed his hand to him, besides, the bigger they are the harder they crash. The leader stared confused at the alien, mostly because of his expression. He soon got his answer as Lodestar shot a sonic magnetic field at him, sending him crashing into an old apartment building, and proving Lodestar's remark. The other robots saw this as they faced the building which then collapsed. The robots turned back to Lodestar with anger and charged. Jack made a reach to his sword, but Lodestar gave him a look that made him to stop. Lodestar raised both his hands into the sky and unleashed a sonic magnetic field blast. It reached 20 feet into the air before scattering to different places, lifting the robots high. He had to put much effort because of their numbers, but it didn't frustrate him much. As the robots were caught in his magnetic field, they were taken high into the air and crushed into each other. That action ended them instantly with Lodestar forming them into a ball. His shot increased his magnetic blast, shooting him into the air and distance away. Now who got squashed? Because it wasn't me. Lodestar boosted to himself, taking a heroic stance. However, the self-pride soon ended as the boss burst through the collapsed building. He looked around with deadly glowing eyes, expecting to see his men around. Unfortunately for him, the only two standing were Jack and Lodestar. It then occurred to him that the kid, who was an alien, had taken down his men in just a few minutes. I'm going to squash you like the bug you are. You know that only goes if I was Spider Monkey, right? Lodestar said. The boss didn't seem to listen as he roared and charged at Lodestar. Every step he took, the ground shook and shook despite it wasn't a giant. Lodestar didn't seem bothered by it and only sighed, they never listen. He raised both his hands at the robot, sending his magnetic wave. Unlike the others, the boss was frozen in place and couldn't move no matter how much he tried. Lodestar then increased the effect, which in turn caused a large crack at the chest and soon the entire body. The robot screamed from the pain, that is if he could feel pain. Lodestar didn't show much interest in his scream, but rather concentrated on increasing the effect. His magnetic wave overcame the robot and he burst into pieces. Jack watched the pieces decided by gravity before staring at Lodestar. The teen young hero seems to notice as he turned to him. "See, I told you I can handle it." "What is?" Jack began but stopped. The ground began to shake, but this time they could see where it was coming from. They looked up to the high and found giant silver humanoid robots heading their way. At that moment, the Omnitrix timed out, changing Lodestar back to Ben. The wielder of the Omnitrix gawked, watching as giant silver robots kept coming from different directions. Each of these robots resembles each other, especially an insignia that had the letter M. The samurai continued looking at the robots before turning at Ben with a stern look. Though Ben didn't see him do it, he still noticed, "What? It's not like they wouldn't be here if you didn't fight them." Besides, he turned back to the samurai with a smirk, "I can get us out of here." He brought out a round green ball and presented it to Jack. The older hero raised an eyebrow, but Ben didn't pay attention. He threw the ball down, creating a large green smoke that covered them. When it blew away, they were gone. Once the heroes disappeared, the robots stood in confusion. They scanners didn't pick anything, so they turned back and began searching around. However, if they had looked at the manhole the heroes once stood, they would have noticed it close fully. Jack ensured the manhole was covered fully before proceeding down the ladder. Ben was already standing on the ground, waiting for the samurai to join him. It didn't take a while as Jack jumped down and sighed, "That was close. However, we must be going. Those weren't Aku's robots." "But how did you acquire that smoke bomb?" "I got them from some superheroes from another dimension." Ben simply answered like it was an ordinary question. The hero didn't say anything after that and walked away. Jack followed Ben's lead and began following him. The two remained in silence, but not in mind. Jack began to wonder more about Ben and found him as an interesting teen. Though he was wisecracks sometimes, Jack could easily tell he had a heart of good and heroism. But the silence was taking too much, even for him, that he interrupted it. "So, Benjamin, is it?" "Yeah, but call me Ben. It's a lot better than saying my full name," Ben said. "Understood, so where do you come from?" "From another universe," Ben stated. He came to a halt, realizing the samurai raised an eyebrow. Ben understood why and explained, "I'm from a universe where things are a bit or totally different. Mine is normal, except the aliens that pop up once in a while. In that universe, I'm a hero and it still goes for everywhere I go." "Another universe?" Jack seems intrigued, even walking away. Ben watched the samurai before catching up to him. Jack seems to be thinking about the concept of another universe, trying to come to terms about it. "So does Aku exist in it?" "No. Besides, I've never heard of him. Who is he anyway and why do you keep mentioning him from time to time?" Ben didn't get an immediate response as he noticed a dark look on Jack's face. It then occurred to Ben that Aku might have caused him pain and perhaps something more. The wielder of the Omnitrix could relate to a few times when he had such emotion. He has felt it when Danny was thought to be killed and when it turned out that Nefarious turned her evil. In other words, Ben knew what Jack was feeling, though that what he thought. For what felt like a while, which it was, Jack spoke, but it was different. The samurai didn't look at Ben and his face had the mixture of pain and anger. It was amazing that he didn't let it all out and still maintained a cool voice. "Aku is the most evil and veiled villain that has ever come upon the earth. He has conquered lands, leaving destruction and pain behind. It is my goal to defeat him so I may return back to my time." "Your time?" Ben glanced at the samurai confused. Once he took a better look on Jack's appearance, he gave himself a face palmed, "I'm such an idiot. Don't think like that." Jack patted Ben on the back. The dark emotion on his face was gone, allowing a smile to take over. Now come, we must be going and find an exit. Ben complied and the two continued walking, this time allowing the silence to take in. The odor of the sewers has lessened over the time and the heroes didn't find it disturbing. They continued walking and even took turns when they came upon them. After some more walking, they came upon a brick wall which also meant as a dead end. Great! A dead end. Ben said stubbornly. Not exactly. Jack said, though his eyes were on the wall. He walked away from Ben and walked to it, keeping a skeptic look. There was something about the wall that Jack found odd, but Ben couldn't. He stepped forward and pressed his hand on it, touching the brick itself. His hand wandered around until it pressed a brick in. That instant, the place shook and the dead end opened. Ben glanced at Jack and gave him a thumbs up. Nice detective work, dude. He said and walked inside. Jack remained back for a while, thinking about the meaning of Ben's thumbs up. He took it as a good thing and walked in, entering the darkness. The heroes found the place dark to see. They could all determine it was a tunnel as they kept going narrowly. To shine some light out, Ben twisted the Omnitrix dial and the green light grew to brighten the way. He then looked back at Jack and gestured him to follow, which he did. Now that the Omnitrix shined the way, the heroes could see their front. Ben led the way, since the tunnel was narrow and he had the Omnitrix. The two heroes kept going, wanting to see if the other side would get them out or take them somewhere safe. Ben hoped the most to find somewhere or else he might run down the Omnitrix power. Finally, after a long while, the heroes finally came to the other end. Unfortunately, the other end turned out to be a dead end. Ben stared at it gawkily before he snapped at it angrily, "Are you kidding me?" In anger, the teen kicked the wall which in turn set off something. I guess it's my turn." Like when Jack opened the entrance, the dead end opened right before them, shining some light. The Omnitrix light shut off and began recharging the power it lost. While it did, Jack and Ben found their location was high from the actual ground in a large room. The entire area was a large lab filled with expensive technology like supercomputers and other things Ben and Jack couldn't identify or didn't care to know. However, there was someone Ben could identify. "Look," Ben said, pointing to a capsule, "it's Buttercup." True to his words, the Powerpuff girl was inside a capsule. But from the looks of it she was in an unconscious state. On her body were small plugs all over her body and a large cut on her abdomen. Some scientists were standing around her, writing down some notes. The others were on computers, typing some things that Ben could guess were related to Buttercup. "This isn't good," Ben stated, "they're experimenting on her." "You're right, Ben." Jack looked at the scientists mostly. Those scientists work for Aku. Whatever this girl possesses, we must stop them before they acquire it. That instant, the Omnitrix face popped up, displaying an alien hologram, already on it. "It's hero time. Right ahead of you." With a cry, he jumped off with his arms open. He saw the ground coming fast at him and looked at the Omnitrix. "Come on, Omnitrix, give me Shocksquatch." He turned the dial and found the alien he wanted before slamming it down. Ben became engulfed in green light, feeling as the transformation took over. His entire body began to change from his human form to an alien form. His body formed in a small size, giving him the body similar to an insect. He grew an antenna on his forehead and his legs became stick legs along with a beak. When the transformation completed, in Ben's place was a bug-like alien. "Ah!" An alien insect screamed and hit the ground. He groaned from the impact and got up to his feet before taking a look at himself. "Seriously, Ball Weevil? This isn't the time for cuteness." Ball Weevil's presence didn't go unheard by the scientists. One of them ran to a button on the wall and pressed it, activating an alarm around. A large hangar door then opened and a troop of dark red robots on one wheel with large heads rushed in. Ball Weevil saw them coming and screamed as he jumped out of the way of a laser. He saw more robots pointing their lasers at him and began to run. "Jack, I could use some help here," Ball Weevil shouted, running as fast as little legs could. Though he avoided a few blasts, one of them hit him from behind, sending him flying to a wall. Ball Weevil bounced off the wall and laid on the floor, only to find that he was surrounded. Amen. Before the robots could fire, a loud cry was heard from above. It grabbed the robots' attention and they looked up, only to find Jack landing straight from above them with his sword high above him. The next few minutes, the robots were sliced into pieces and lay on the ground with oil licking out. Jack stood on the ground, having taken care of the robots before they could put up a fight. He turned to Ben, who then sighed in relief. "Thanks." Jack nodded. "You're welcome, now and free the girl, I'll keep you guarded." Suddenly, the same entrance the previous robots opened, allowing more of them to rush in. Jack held his sword firmly before taking off, leaving Ball Weevil. The small insect alien watched Samurai Jack fight the robots before walking to a scientist. The small alien went to his leg and tugs his pants. "Hey, Bob. Mind letting me use that?" The scientist looked down and saw Ball Weevil. He screamed in a high pitch and ran off, leaving Ball Weevil to snicker at his behavior. The insect hero climbed on the computer and looked at the screen, finding something on it very interesting. It had a diagram of Buttercup's body and a list of abilities on it. Ball Weevil's curiosity got the better of him and he began to read the list. Each one he read, his eyes grew wide. According to the list, Buttercup was a lot stronger than Ben thought. It might have been that she loved fighting with her fists that she never used the others. Ball Weevil would have continued, but time was running out. "Okay, so how can I free her?" Ball Weevil hummed to himself. He looked at all the keys underneath him and shrugged. "Nah, I'm just going to wing it." No sooner, he began to tap his tiny legs on each of them. He kept doing it, earning each code with a negative beep from the large monitor. It then occurred to him to get the right code and he kept going. Each command was a negative, but Ball Weevil kept going until he finally got a positive beep. "Yes!" Ball Weevil exclaimed. The capsule holding Buttercup opened, allowing the water to rush out. The plugs on Buttercup flew off her body and she fell out and hit the hard ground. Ball Weevil cringes from the impact she went through and walked to her. Though weakened, Buttercup let out a mmm as she tried to wake. She felt weak from an injection that was given to her earlier and it still had an effect. Already, she felt her consciousness becoming blurry that she couldn't see well. The last thing she saw was a yellow bug with a familiar symbol walking to her. After that, she closed her eyes and became unconscious. Ball Weevil inspected the Buttercup and realized that she wore different clothes. She wore a green tank top and blue shorts. The teen hero could guess the reason was so the experimentation on her could be carried on without exposing her body, which Ben was glad she was clothed. He was about to change himself back so he could help her when he saw Jack's fight against the robot increasing. The wielder of the Omnitrix saw that more robots were rushing in, outnumbering him. Jack did amazingly with agility and skill that Ben never thought possible. What was more amazingly was how he kept fighting despite the bruises he got from their attacks. Ball Weevil couldn't take it anymore and spit out a round green sticky ball. He then jumped on it and began to moving it, making it roll, and made his way towards the robots and Jack. As he got closer, the ball began to grow to extent that it was huge. "Jack, get out of the way!" he shouted. Jack halted with a confused expression. He turned back and found Ball Weevil coming on a giant ball of plasma. Knowing to listen, Jack jumped out of the way. Ball Weevil came closer to the robots before jumping off, allowing the ball to roll and hit the robots. It caused a huge explosion that destroyed many of them and sent the rest hitting the wall that they broke on impact. However, the battle was far from over as more robots rushed from the door. Ball Weevil made a cricket sound in anger before spewing a rope of plasma goo, tying most of them into ball of goop. He brought the now formed ball and jumped on it before rolling all the way to the others. Once he got close, he jumped off it, allowing the ball to roll and hit the upcoming robots. The explosion from it blew the robots up and destroyed the entrance, causing large concretes to block it. Ah yeah. I just took those guys down. Ball Weevil exclaimed before timing out and changing back to Ben. Jack narrowed his eyes at the teen hero, but said nothing. Instead he turned away and ran to the unconscious Buttercup. Ben continued to look at his work proudly before he realized Jack wasn't with him. He looked back and saw the samurai carrying Buttercup in a bridal style and ran to him. Is she okay? Ben asked worriedly. Jack glanced at the girl in his hands and then back at Ben. I don't know. We must take her somewhere safe and dry her off first. She might catch a cold if we don't. Ben was about to reply back, but an explosion took place. They saw the blocked entrance blown up, allowing more robots, this time bigger, rushing in. Jack was unable to use his sword, which would mean dropping Buttercup. It was too late for even Ben to do anything, since his Omnitrix was timed out. The robots came and surrounded them, but then came to a halt. The heroes were confused. The robots should have attacked, but they stood in place. The next thing they knew, they felt a dark shudder down their spine as a shadow casted from the ground and formed into a mystic being. This being, Jack has faced multiple times and wasn't happy when he saw him appear. The being of evil towered over them with his massive height. His body was mostly as dark as the darkness places, he had red fire on top his eyes and had fangs. The being then looked down and smirked the two heroes. Well, isn't it Samurai Jack? Apparently, we meet again. Aku. Jack gnashed his teeth in anger as he glared at him. Ben stared shockingly at the mystical being in front of them. This was the creature that was pure evil. This was the being that caused Jack pain. When Ben laid eyes on him, Aku didn't look much than what he has faced in the past. Sure, he was as big, but Ben has faced bigger and scarier villains like Trigon the Terrible. However, Ben has learned over the time to not underestimate the enemy no matter their size. The wielder of the Omnitrix turned his head to Jack, to see his reaction. The samurai was angry to see the evil being before. Ben knew that look, having gone through it himself during when Danny became evil. If it weren't that Jack was carrying Buttercup, he might have charged at mystical entity. He also came to realize if the guy was powerful then they need to draw and gain their strength, so they can come back in full force. Jack, we have to get out of here. I know you want to take this guy down, but not in the safety of another. We have to go now. Ben said to reason with him. The samurai glances at Ben and saw the seriousness in his eyes. He knew Ben was right and allowed himself to release a breath to let out his anger. Very well. He then looked back at Aku, but this isn't over. I will destroy you. With that said, Ben brought out a smoke bomb and threw it to the ground, causing smoke to engulf them. When it cleared, they were already gone. Aku still remained where he stood, staring at where they once stood and even let a sly smile to form on his face. He knew Jack would come and will be ready for him, ready to end the samurai once and for all. Jack and Ben ran through the streets as fast as they could. They had to put some distance between themselves and the location of the lab. So far they didn't encounter any robots while doing so, but they still ran. Jack was in the lead, being faster than Ben and still carrying Buttercup in his arms. Ben followed from behind and came to a halt when exhaustion took over. Jack also came to a halt and turned back at the teen. Are you okay, Ben? Yeah, just give me a sec. The brown-haired panted. Ben took some time to catch up his breath before he stood straight with his breathing fine. Thanks. So what now? Knowing Aku, he'll probably be looking for us. Okay, so let's move. I know a place we can go to. The teen said and then ran off. Jack took off with the teen and followed from behind. After everything they went through, Jack was glad Ben pulled him back from fighting Aku. Ben was right about getting Buttercup to safety without wasting time. Along with that, they'll need to rest for the next time they will attack in full force, except they would have to go for the main place of operation. Jack knew as well, for every time Jack and Aku meet, there is always a rematch. Night time was over the city of Townsville. It didn't change much of the ruins that were now the city, except that the sounds of crickets filled the air. It seems deserted, but there was one place that was occupied. It served as shelter and coverage for the heroes that found themselves stuck in the ruined future. Within a forgotten store, a campfire blew bristly in the wind. It cooled the cold air for those around it and brought comfort to them. It also gave Buttercup the warmth to come back to consciousness as she let out a mm. She sat up with an exhausted look and opened her eyes to look around. She found herself in a wrecked store that once had toys by the looks of it. Buttercup was confused, but at the same time realized something providing heat coming behind her. She quickly got on her feet and spun around to face it, only to find a creature that was rock and fire. The Powerpuff got ready to fight, but the monster held up its hands. "Whoa! Hold it there, girlie." The creature spoke to her, "There's no need to start round 3. Buttercup didn't seem convinced as she got into a fighting stance. She also gave the monster a deadly glare as she asked, "Who are you and where am I? The last thing I can remember was that getting my ass kicked. First, you're in an abandoned store. And second, I'm here to help you. See." At the last word, the creature slapped the symbol on its chest and became engulfed in a flash of green light. When it died down, there was a 13-year-old kid with brown hair and green eyes. "See, we're all friends here." However, the look on Buttercup's face said otherwise. The kid easily saw this and said softly, "All right, I guess I'll start introductions. My name is BEN10. I was the aliens that you kept fighting until we got here." "What are you talking about?" Buttercup asked, but this time with a confused expression. "Where is here anyway?" "I'm talking about that we're in a far distant future." Buttercup became silent for a while and began to think. The memories of what happened earlier came in and she dropped her stance. A sad look then took over her face and she fell on her as to the ground. "Great, now I'm in bigger trouble than I thought." "Yeah, but we can get back," Ben said. "Oh, and how is that?" Buttercup glanced at him with a mix of doubt and frustration. "That I haven't figured out." Ben smiled awkwardly. Buttercup felt cold and shivered. She discovered then that she wore a green tank top and blue shorts. She also discovered a scar on her abdomen, but it seems to be healing slowly. But through it all, it was awkward wearing something so exposed to the cold. Ben came to her rescue as he removed his shirt and lent it to her. "Here you go. I think you need this more than I do." "Are you sure?" Buttercup asked him. "Yeah, I can handle ACHO." The last part he sneezed. Buttercup smiled a bit and took the shirt. She wore and felt warmth again. When she turned back to Ben to thank him, she realized that Ben has some muscles. It wasn't major, but it was rare to have for a 13-year-old kid. It might have been the training he has gone through in 2 universes had caused it. Buttercup realized then that she was staring at Ben and glanced away before he noticed. Then she heard footsteps and found a samurai coming to the campfire. "Is everyone all right?" he asked. "Yeah, Jack," Ben replied. "Jack?" Buttercup muffled an attempt to laugh. "Isn't that an odd name for a samurai?" "I don't know," Jack said as he came closer. "The people of this future call me Jack." "Are you all right now, miss?" Buttercup knew the question meant on her condition and she nodded. "Yeah, I'm fine. I've taken worse things than that, so I'll live." "Good, I think." Jack was unsure of what to think, but turned to Ben. "Why aren't you wearing your shirt?" "Buttercup was getting cold, so I lent her my shirt," Ben said. Jack nodded, seeing that Ben was right since Buttercup wore it. After that, they gathered around the fire to get warm. It was silent since no one made a form of discussion. Jack sharpened his sword with a rock. Ben was dialing through his aliens because of boredom and Buttercup sat there with nothing to do. "So how about we get to know each other? Unlike you guys, I don't have a sword or a strange watch." Buttercup broke the silence. It's called the Omnitrix. Ben corrected her, besides, you're right about that. Let me be the one to start. To explain better, he stood up and began to tell, I come from another universe. There, I was once a normal kid, but one day, during the first day of summer with my grandpa and cousin, the Omnitrix landed somewhere in the camp area. I found it and since that day I've been kicking alien butts. That's pretty cool, Ben. Buttercup smiled. Thanks. Ben smiled back and continued, but just some months ago, I ran away from home. I wanted to turn back when I realized I shouldn't, but a portal came in and I fell in. Since then I've been jumping from one universe to the next, helping other heroes and kicking bad guys' butts. It wasn't easy and I almost lost someone I loved there. In the end, I found out I was destined to stop a guy called Nefarious, and since then I've been going to one universe to the next to stop the guy. You've gone through so much. Jack said in a pity state. Yeah, but I can handle it. Ben turned to him and smirked, I've beaten a lot of supervillains except for Nefarious and Ian who keeps getting away. Ian's the same guy that attacked Buttercup. Wait, that was him? Buttercup perked up in anger, I hate him. Relax, Buttercup. Jack said to ease her. Yeah. Ben said, besides, I like to know about you. Fine. Buttercup said as calmed down. As Ben sat down, she stood up and started, my full name is Buttercup Utonium. I have 2 other sisters and together we're the Powerpuff Girls. We kick major butts, whether it's monsters, a psychopath monkey or robots. My sisters and I were created by my father, Professor Utonium. Wait, you were created? Ben perked up a bit, that's so cool. Thanks. Buttercup smiled at him. Then she continued, so anyway, my dad used sugar, spice and everything nice. Then with a chemical called Chemical X, boom. He got 3 as kicking daughters. Whoa. Ben gawked at Buttercup a bit, remind me to write that down. I want to try it. Don't even think about it. Buttercup scolded. Ben shifted back a bit from Buttercup. She calmed down and sat down on the ground. Now the remaining person was Jack. The samurai knew this as he put his sword in its usual case and got up. Back in my time, my father reigned as Emperor of Japan. The land was peaceful during that time without the technology of today and crimes. But that changed when Aku came. Who's Aku? Buttercup interrupted. Jack's getting to that. Ben said in a low tone. Jack continued, Aku is an embodiment of evil itself. He has no mercy and does anything that's wicked and cruel. My father fought him with the sword I now have and sent him into a deep imprisonment. Peace reigned once more for some years, but he returned. He took over my home, but because of a plan by my parents I was sent away to prepare. I got the training till adult age and went to fight Aku. Nice. But how did it go? Ben asked as he became excited to know. A sad look dawned on Jack's face, it went in my favor. But Aku tricked me and sent me forward in time. Now I journey in the world to look for a time portal that will take me home. I'm sorry. Ben frowned, I didn't know. No need to be sad, Ben. Jack said as cracked a smile of his own, I know I will find a way back home and defeat Aku once and for all. Soon, another silence took over. Jack sat back and went back to his sword like earlier. Ben didn't do much, but lie down and stare at the dented ceiling. Buttercup only stared at the fire as she let all their stories come together. It brought her to realize something that she widened her eyes with a huge smirk on her face. So what are we waiting for? Let's go kick some butts. Buttercup sprung up to her feet, we got a kid with a powerful sword, a samurai with awesome skills and a cool sword, and let's not forget a girl that kicks major ass. Together we can't move. We already figured that, Buttercup. Ben said from his position, Jack and I were just waiting for you to wake up before asking you to help. Something bad is going on in the park. Ben and I found it hard to get out. No doubt our enemies are at work. Jack said. So why are we waiting? Buttercup asked with an excited grin. Morning. Jack replied, for now we rest to gain strength for the battle ahead. Buttercup wanted to object, but pouted and fell on her as, fine. Morning time soon arrived with the sun up in the air. The city of Townsville still remained as quiet due to the absence of people. But of course it didn't mean that it was completely deserted. Just on top of a high skyscraper, Ben, Buttercup and Jack looked down below. The height of the building granted them the ability to see what used to be Townsville's park. Thousands of years later, the park has become a base of operation. It had an electric fence that will electrocute anyone that tried getting through. Then within the park were hundreds of battle robots and a base that most likely lead underground. The robots were purple and on one wheel. Ben passed his vision binoculars to Jack so he can see the area. He already saw enough so gave it to Jack to see. Buttercup didn't need it since she could enhance her eyes to a point that it's better than the binoculars. Seeing what I'm seeing? Ben asked firmly without looking away from the park. Yes. Jack nodded and put the binoculars down. We need a plan to ensure us complete entering. If what the Time Walkers say is true, then Aku and his allies are taking a monster through a time machine. Then let's go. Buttercup exclaimed. Before anyone could say otherwise, Buttercup shot off from the skyscraper and flew straight for the park. Jack watched her fly away and turned to Ben. This is not how we should attack. Aku will be expecting us. Well, if he is, Ben said as he activated the hologram of an alien on the Omnitrix, then we better bring some firepower. Ben slammed down the watch and became engulfed in a flash of light. The temperature of his body became high as his body became rocks. Then fire completely covered him, giving him the figure of a fire and rock humanoid. Heat blast. Ben shouted. Now in his alien form, Ben shot off from the skyscraper and flew to the park. Jack watched him go and sighed in frustration, already putting his own words aside. He took out his sword and made a jump off the skyscraper and ran to the park. Buttercup came stomping down in the park. The impact made a shockwave that knocked several robots away and a huge crater below Buttercup. She had a smirk on her face which she stood up straightly and looked at the robots surrounding her from the top ground. This is so going to be fun. Another explosion came from the park and so did the sound of a huge impact. Robots were sent flying through the air and machinery parts were scattered. Buttercup fought her way through, mainly by punching and shooting laser beams. As more robots came, she stomps her foot down at their direction that it sent a rocky shockwave that sent them flying. Buttercup liked the bashing so much with a grin on her face. However, she failed to notice a bigger robot that came behind her. It casted a huge shadow that made her notice it. Oh crud! She gawked at the massive-size robot. It raised its huge hands to squash her, but a fireball hit it. The robot exploded when the fireball hit it, causing it to burst to pieces. Buttercup took a step back and looked up to see Heat Blast. Remember to leave some of them for me. Heat Blast said. Buttercup nodded with a smirk. She and Heat Blast heard the sound of robots marching and turned to the direction of it. Buttercup turned back to Heat Blast with a cocky grin and flew off. Race ya. Oh, it's on. Heat Blast snickered. His hand went above the Omnitrix and he said. Looks like a job for a heavy hitter. He touched the face and became engulfed in a flash of green light. When the light died, a red alien with 4 hands, 4 eyes, and wearing a white shirt and black pants stood. 4 arms. He cried out. Since he no longer had Heat Blast, he landed on the ground. He looked at his hands and shrugged. I was hoping for wrath, but 4 arms and for the fun. With that said, 4 arms ran into battle. He met Buttercup bashing several robots and ran faster to get in on the fun. Get out of the way. Hero coming through. Buttercup stood aside and watched Forearms coming to a stop and claps his 4 hands. He sent a sonic wave that hit several robots and destroyed them. Whoa! Buttercup smirked with interest. Now the fun can really begin. Tell me about it. Forearms' smirk went the same way as Buttercup. Together, both heroes charged at upcoming robots. Buttercup punched her way throwing with her fists and took a robot's arm to hit the other. When the weapon became useless to her, she charged up her eyes and let out a huge laser blasts. It cut through the entire robots, destroying them. She then used to spin around, destroying the robots surrounding her. Forearms did his own part by bashing robots coming at him. His powerful fists made contact with several robots and did much damage in all sorts of ways. Due to his height and strength, he was capable of grabbing 2 robots and using them as weapons to hit more. However, it didn't last as many still came at him and began to shoot lasers from their wrists. Forearms used his hands to shield himself, but they still sting. He became furious and threw all 4 hands to the ground, sending a shockwave that destroyed more of them. He let out a battle cry and charged at upcoming ones. The battle against the robots went on for a while. But with Buttercup and Forearms fighting they took them down. When the robots became too much they regrouped, standing back to back with excited grins on their faces. Both heroes fought against the robots, leaving them in destroyed parts. Soon enough, the entire park was cleared of the robots. The 2 heroes became exhausted due to all the fighting. It wasn't easy, but it was fun and hard to fight them robots. As they began to regain their strength, the Omnitrix beeped and changed Forearms back to Ben. Now that was a lot of robots. Ben took a breath and turned to the heroine next to him. You're telling me. Buttercup heaved a bit and smiled at Ben, you're not so bad. Thanks. Ben smiled. However, Buttercup heard something coming and knew what it was. Ben, get out of the way. The Powerpuff shouted and ran by Ben's side. Suddenly, a missile flew straight at Buttercup and hit her. But since she shielded Ben, she and the teen hero was sent flying. Both of them hit the ground, but Buttercup was a bit dazed. Ben had to push her off him and got a clear view of 3 huge robots. They were bigger and buffer than the ones they beat and had the size of 10 feet. Ben glanced at the Omnitrix with a panicked look, but found it still recharging. Ah, come on. I could really use an alien about now. However, the robots had their hand-like cannons targeted at Ben. They were powering up to fire, and with Buttercup dazed and the Omnitrix still recharging they'll succeed to destroy both heroes. Out of fear, Ben covered his head with his hands and closed his eyes. I never thought I'll go down like this. Goodbye world. The robots got into maximum power and were about to fire, but something interrupted. A battle cry was heard above and drew the robots and Ben's attention. It was revealed to be Samurai Jack, who had his sword above his head and was coming down. A robot raised its cannon and shot the beam intended for Ben and Buttercup at Jack. But the samurai, his sword swung against it, redirecting it away. He landed on the robot that shot him and cut the head off with one swing of his sword. The second robot shot its cannon at Jack, but he jumped off the robot and landed on that robot. The laser intended for him destroyed the beheaded robot instead. Jack didn't have to stay long on the robot as the third opened fire. He jumped off it, allowing the lasers intended for him to destroy it. He landed on the robot safely, but this time he struck his sword into shoulder and touched down on the ground. His sword created a huge gush from its shoulder and chest, causing it to explode. Oddly enough, Jack stood unharmed. Dude, Ben gawked at him before shaking his head. Thanks for the save. You're welcome. Jack replied. He moved his sword in smoothly into the air before putting it into his case. At that moment, Buttercup let out a groan and stood up. She sat up with an aching head and groaned a bit. What hit me? A missile. Ben answered like it was normal. He got off the ground and helped Buttercup to her feet too. Jack walked to the group closer and said to them, "We've already wasted enough time. I'm positive this was Aku's plan all along. We must move now. Now. Samurai, won't you want to stay back for this? Said a sudden intrusion as a voice. Jack knew the owner of the voice, but Buttercup and Ben didn't know. Either way, when a black body formed from the ground and took into the form of a familiar darkness of evil, they all looked at it. It was a gigantic being with fire-like eyelashes, a black body and black horns on the side of his heads. Aku! Jack snarled. Aku looked down on Jack and his companion. He had a mischievous grin on his face, something Jack has gotten used to and hated. It's been a while, Samurai. Every day is a chance of a battle between us. But this time it ends. Jack said firmly and swiftly drew out his sword. As you wish. Aku chuckled afterwards. Suddenly, black vines sprouted from the ground below Jack, Ben and Buttercup. The speed the vines were too fast that it tied around their wrists, neck and legs. It became worse when it tightened its grip, forcing Jack to drop his sword. Buttercup tried to break free with her enhanced strength. She did successfully, but each vine she broke out another took over swiftly. Jack couldn't do much as more veins began to cover his body. It's over, Samurai. Aku laughed. Not if I have anything to say. Ben said with much faith. Unfortunately, the vines began to reproduce and cover the hero's body. Buttercup found most of her body gone, with only thing uncovered was her eyes. The same thing went for Jack, who stared daggers at Aku. He saw him gloating to himself, enjoying the victory he seems to have. But as much as he hated to admit it, Aku might win. However, a sudden flash of light emitted from Ben. The only one to witness it was Aku, who shielded his eyes. The light from Ben destroyed vines holding Jack and Buttercup, freeing them from the bonds. Ben began to grow bigger with each passing second. Jack and Buttercup had to look up to the sky as the light slowly died, revealing Ben's new alien form. He was a giant humanoid alien with a large fin on his head, two blades like outgrowths on his shoulders and spikes on his waist. You're in big trouble. Way big! Shouted Ben as way big. Jack and Buttercup gazed at the giant alien that stood next to them. All the aliens they've seen so far by Ben were impressive, but they never thought of seeing one so huge. Now that's cool. Buttercup gazed with a smirk expression. Seems like Ben got things here. What do you mean? Jack asked as he turned to her. Buttercup looked away from the giant and faced Jack. We have to stop that creature from getting into that time portal, remember? Yes. Jack nodded, but looked at Aku. But I can't leave when I have the chance to destroy Aku. Think this through, Jack. Buttercup faced him sternly. We got a job to do. Wait, I just sound like Blossom. Gross. The Powerpuff shuddered a bit at the thought. Jack only blinked, a bit confused about the turn of discussion. I fail to see your point. Fine, I wanted to do this the easy way. Before Jack knew it, Buttercup grabbed his hand and flew off to the direction of the base, but the hard way is fine by me. Way Big looked back at them and saw them leave. With them gone, he didn't have to worry about endangering them or Jack getting in the way to destroy Aku. He went back to face Aku and got into a fighting stance. Now for you. Way Big said. Aku laughed a bit with a cocked evil grin. Foolish boy. I am Aku, evil sorcerer and MSTR of darkness. I will. He didn't finish as Way Big threw a fist at his face, knocking him to the ground. Tell that to my fist. Wait, you just did. Way Big smirked. Time to end this. Aku muttered. Aku transformed into a demon bird and flew up into the air. He flew around and dived down to attack Way Big with his claws sharpened, but Way Big ducked down to avoid him. Before he could fly high, he caught Aku by the tail and threw him down on the ground hard. Aku formed into black goo and shot out several tentacles at Way Big. They tied around the giant alien's hands and legs before drawing him despite his struggle. The giant looked forward and found Aku form a giant mouth and teeth as he drew him closer. No way am I going down like that. Waybig rebelled as he kept struggling. All efforts seemed to fail for Waybig, but an idea sprung up. Waybig brought his hands to a plus position and shot a direct cosmic beam at the goo. It hit the goo perfectly, causing Aku to scream as he shaped back to normal. Impossible. Aku cried out as he held his chest, nothing on earth can harm me, except the sword. Waybig cocked a grin as he got into the same position as before. Hate to break it to you, but Waybig isn't from Earth and neither is the Omnitrix. Just as the hero finished, he unleashed multiple cosmic blasts at Aku. The ancient evil screamed from each blast, forcing him to move backwards. Waybig was enjoying every moment of it as shown by the smirk. He stopped his attack momentarily, but still kept his hands in place. Hey, Aku! Waybig called out. Aku arched at the pain he felt, but looked forward. He found Waybig powering up his cosmic blast, followed by his words, "Take a load of this power." Waybig reached full power and shot a huge cosmic beam. It pierced right through Aku, causing him to scream in pain and dissipate into thin air. Waybig dropped down his hands and placed them by his side in a hero stance. Bad guy taken down. Don't celebrate, fool. Suddenly, Waybig found a dark aura on top of him. He cried out from the pain and tried to move it off. But he could only move slowly due to the pain. He was lifted off the ground and thrown down on the ground with Aku on top of him in the form of a scorpion. Now to end this. Aku said as he raised his stinger. I wouldn't count on that. Waybig retorted. Waybig kicked Aku off him and got to his feet. He got his hands into position and fired a cosmic beam. Aku evaded the attack by jumping back and formed into goo that entered the ground. This can't be good. Waybig muttered while dropping his hands. Suddenly, the ground began to shake that it made it hard for Waybig to stand. It then burst and Aku in the form of a giant came out as Waybig was thrown to the ground. Ha 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 ha. Aku laughed and shot red laser beams at him. Waybig got hit and cried in pain as he felt every pain of it. Aku kept laughing, enjoying the sound of his scream. He increased the power of his laser beam, expecting it to destroy Waybig. However, the teen hero rolled to the right to get out of the beam. He got up on his feet quickly and jumped high into the air. There, he did a spin and came back down in a dive with his upper body and fist straight down. Aku became wide-eyed, but got over it to shoot his beams. He was very shocked when he saw Waybig pass right through it. He thought about increasing the beam, but it was too late when Waybig hit him. The collision of Waybig fist making contact with Aku's face shook the ground close and far. A dust cloud had formed during the collision and was now clearing away. It soon showed Waybig holding Aku in his normal by the shoulders. Face it, Aku. You've lost. Waybig told him with firmness. Ha 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 ha. Aku laughed and grinned, foolish boy, you have no idea of what I can do. And what will that be? Waybig glared at him in anger. You'll see. Right before Waybig's sight, Aku vanished into air from his grip. Though Aku was gone, Waybig thought about what he meant. It was a mystery, but he knew very well that was very bad. He was brought out of his thoughts when he heard thunder rumbled in the sky as dark lightning flashed. A giant image of Aku appeared in front of him with him being bigger. Goodbye, BEN10. I will send your regards to Nefarious. With that said, he laughed and faded away. Aku. Waybig yelled angrily, come back here and fight. The only response he got was echoic laughter in the air. The skies finally charged up and shot down several lightning bolts that struck the ground. Waybig was hit several with his surroundings and cried out in total pain. It became so unbearable for him that he changed back to normal in a flash of green light. The lightning attack ceased to show a devastated ground and Ben lying on the crater with several bruises on his body. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 2. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and man of cartoons on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.